MulletCast, the podcast where business and pleasure collide. My name is Evan Balmer.
What's up? It's Mike Mercia.
What's happening, Mike?
What's
How are you?
Pleasure's always in the back.
That's right. Today we got a little double threat going on.
Oh, yeah, and he is little.
Our primary... It's going to be one of those kind of episodes.
Yeah.
Huh? All right. So we're joined by Oscar Collazos.
Yes, sir.
A.K.A., as in America, we call him Collazos, but...
Could you try that? Could you say that again?
Dude, you messed me up.
You had it. You had
Oscar,
it perfectly twice.
Collazos.
There you go.
All right. Oscar, find him online at Oscar, I'll Americanize it this time, OscarCollazos.com, OscarCollazos, and across all social media at Colombian Comic.
COLO.
COLO. That's
Yeah.
right. Colombian.
A lot of people put that U in there.
That's right. It's
No
not
bueno.
the university, it's the place, right?
Yeah, it's also not Columbia, South Carolina.
Right. That's cool. So what's going on, Oscar?
Not much. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thanks for taking the trek in.
Yeah.
So as we talked about briefly beforehand, you were born in Cali,
What am I,
Colombia.
nothing? What am I, garbage?
I forgot. The reason we're all here, as always. My apologies. Comedian John Moses once again in the house. What's going on,
Home
John?
Inspector. I need home inspecting business more than
That's
I need
right.
you guys to download any videos, all right?
All right.
High Point Home Inspectors.
I've given up.
John, you're an only child? That was a very only child move right there. What about me?
No, that's middle child. That's why you got to
I was going to say middle child next.
Unloved middle child.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Oscar. So you're of Colombian descent.
Yeah, I was born there.
Okay. And then your family moved to Florida. Is that right?
Yeah, 1986. My parents pulled the plug down there, and we moved to Plantation, Florida, suburban Fort Lauderdale, which is suburban Miami.
Right.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you left Colombia?
I was 7.
Yeah. You have good memories of life in Colombia?
Yeah, I definitely have memories. Still, I'm an American, as you know, through and through, because I got here and pretty much my life started here. That's how I, think about it.
Gotcha. When you came here, did you speak any English at all?
No English, no.
Right,
We
so-
were-
You didn't speak English when you got
no,
here?
no.
I don't know nothing about you,
Yeah.
man.
This is why we put these things together so John can actually get to know us.
As friends.
I'm bringing in my friend. What's your name again?
That's awesome. So I'm amazed by that always is like, so you got thrown right into school without speaking English, right?
Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
back then, I think in the county, in Broward County, I think there was one school that had the English program. So they basically just took every immigrant fresh off of Miami Airport, and they were like, all right, you're going to go to that school.
Okay.
So that's where it was me and every Haitian in South Florida.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it a hard adjustment?
Yes, not just a language thing. It's just like I always tell everybody, one day, this is obviously an exaggeration, but imagine one day you're on the side of the road juggling oranges and selling cigarettes the way they do in third world countries, and the next day you're riding the teacups in Orlando, Florida, with Mickey Mouse behind your back, and you're like, what the hell is going on here? As a 7-year-old, that's pretty much what happened. One day we're in one country, and then the next day, without really any explanation, you're in a completely other world. And to me, this place was very futuristic. I was like,
Right.
am I
yeah.
in the future right now?
Yeah.
And my mom's like, yeah, and we're not going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Jetsons. You went from the Flintstones to the Jetsons.
I did, I'm telling you, yeah. But I was still a Flintstone
Yeah.
in the Jetsons.
Why did they leave? Do you know?
Episode 2 of Narcos we were talking about earlier. Before,
Yeah, quite literally. Carly. Really?
Yeah.
Is that
So episode 2 in Narcos, if you've watched, it's a good reference point. But there's a presidential hopeful that swears he's going to clean up everything, and then while he's campaigning, he gets gunned down.
Wow.
And then my parents were like, "We're out of here."
Yeah.
Really, that's the reason that
Yeah.
they left.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
were
yeah.
the Cali
That's
cartel.
incredible.
They ran the city there.
Yeah, it's weird because when I started watching Narcos, which I got to episode 3, and then for 2 reasons I was done with it, and I'll tell you why. But episode
Because
2,
you're selfish. You're like, oh, that's when we moved. I don't know nothing beyond.
No, no. What was weird was episode 2. I saw that scene, and I saw the news images that I had seen back then, and I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my God, this is the reason why we
Yeah.
left," and it hit very close to home. But the 2 main reasons why I stopped watching was, number one, it's just blood and gore.
Yeah.
Which is
It's an action movie.
Yeah,
The
it's just
extended-
blood
yeah.
and gore, and I'm done with that. And And then number 2, the main guy's Brazilian, and he doesn't nail the Colombian accent. And
That was really getting you.
It gets every Colombian, believe it or not.
Really?
Every Colombian's like, this sucks. But everyone else is like, this is awesome. But
Right.
you know, we're very critical
Mm-hmm.
of how he plays that part, and we're like, he's not. I mean, he looks the part, and
Right.
you know, voice wise, he doesn't really represent who we are. And I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. So with those 2, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you're next. You're next on the queue.
It's a quick switch.
Everybody asked my wife, "Could you guys watch Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?" And she's like, "I don't think I could watch that with John."
I've actually never watched
I'd
it.
be so critical of everything. I'd
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, you think you're just gonna start doing comedy, and a year in, you're gonna meet somebody who's gonna take you on the road? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna meet Louis."
Everybody asked me the same thing. I'm like, oh, it's on my queue. I'm never gonna watch it.
That's pretty awesome. So eventually, did you come to adjust to life in Florida then?
Yeah, I mean, you get thrown into the American culture, and it's sink or swim. And I think a lot of times, I think back, people are like, how'd you become a comedian? I'm in this immigrant in this completely different place.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of mockery. There was a lot of making fun of. And if you don't know how to defend yourself, you know, I wouldn't know what to do, really. I probably would have been like, Mom, I'm going back to Colombia on my own. But you learn to defend yourself, and then you become a part of society.
Right.
I was on a football team in high school. I know it doesn't look like it, but
He means Colombian football.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was on the
Football.
soccer team.
Yeah.
I was on the football team, and I was one of 2 Latino kids on the football team. And
Were you somebody's mouth guard?
I was the backup to the water boy. I was a backup strong safety to a guy who went D1. So suck it, John.
Oh, wow.
That's why I was, but I was also like 5'2", so I had no business playing football. But if you guys have ever been on a football team, it's just ranking from start to finish,
Right.
and so you learn how to defend yourself.
Gotcha.
But and I don't know much about. I played a little bit of rugby, but like is the practice brutal? Like you're not playing games, but you're still practicing, and you're probably lining up against this D1 guy all the time, right?
Oh, dude, I got crushed every day.
Right.
Every day.
Especially Florida is like a huge
Florida,
football state.
the #1 football state
Right.
that has high school prospects going pretty much D1
Really?
everywhere. Yeah.
Oh wow, more than I would have thought Texas, but Florida's it, huh?
No, it's Texas, Florida, and California.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think Florida, specifically the South Florida region, is #1. I think if you look at the numbers, there's more South Florida kids playing in the NFL than any other
Really?
region.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of surprised there weren't that many Latinos on your team, though. Why do you think? Were they playing other sports?
Soccer.
or Was it soccer?
I think that a lot of them played baseball. I should have been playing baseball, but I got cut my freshman year, and I refused to ever play baseball ever again. And now I'm the all-star at our yearly softball game.
We've heard of that. You're not on his team, are you?
I switch around.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a good player.
All right.
You'd be surprised how many people are so unathletic
Yeah,
at our
yeah.
age. There's so
Oh,
many.
yeah.
That is pretty wild.
I feel that game for about a week after it's finished.
Oh yeah, me too.
You know,
So then
everything's burning.
that is pretty. All right. So we did talk about that softball game before with Dave Lester.
Yeah, he organizes
tournament,
it.
right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you eventually you stay in Florida. You go to University of Florida.
Yep.
You didn't play football there.
No, but I went to a walk-on meeting.
Oh, did you really?
I did. I went to a walk-on meeting thinking I might have a chance. I know the game. And then I walked in and I saw the most giant human beings ever
Right.
that, life could create. And I remember going into that meeting, seeing what was there, and just doing a U-turn and leaving immediately. I was like, I do not belong here.
And was this the Spurrier years, or is this later? Was
Yeah,
it
no,
on?
this was definitely Spurrier years. I went in '97, so they had just come off a national championship.
Wow, that's
so
cool.
yeah, the football fever was pretty high in Gainesville. at that
Oscar's a
point.
big Florida sports fan.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
I bailed on a Miami Heat ticket for Heat Knicks, and it was Wade's last game, and it was some bachelor party that I didn't want to go to. And I called him up. I go, "What are you doing?" I was just trying to dump the ticket. I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm trying to find a ticket to go to the Miami Heat game." I was like, "Oh yes, I knew you were the guy to call." So he's always like at all the games. He's always got like his Florida Gators gear on, right?
Yeah,
cool.
It's funny because when I was driving when John called me and then his name popped up and I was like, what does this guy want? I don't even want to pick up right now. He's gonna be like, hey, do you want to open for me for $20 in Cherry Hill?
Yeah.
And so then I was like, I'm just gonna tell him I'm going to the game because that was the plan.
Right.
So he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm going to the Miami Heat game. In my mind, you can't tell me anything right now. And then he's like, you buy a ticket already? I'm like, so intrusive, John. And I'm like, no, I'm in the process of. He's like, I got one for you. And I'm like, what do I got to do? What do I got to do for this ticket? Yeah. He's like, just give me your email address and I'll send it to you. And I was like, oh, wow.
You didn't make him wear a Knicks jersey or anything?
No, I
would have never gone. I would have never gone.
Yeah. Who were some of your favorite Heat players?
Oh, man. I mean, they were established in '88, so I all of them. Definitely. The old guys, Glenn Rice, Ronnie Cycli, Harold Miner was a phenom for a little bit, and then he kind of. But Alonzo, obviously, LeBron and D Wade and Udonis Haslem, hands down, my favorite guy ever.
That's cool.
Yeah. Why? Because he was such a banger.
No, because he went to the University of Florida at the same time I was there.
Oh,
And he's from Miami. He went to the University of Florida. He got picked up by the Miami Heat, and he's been a Miami Heat guy his entire career.
He was a real jobber too.
Yeah, he's
Did
awesome.
he bang a lot of chicks in Florida? Was he always with a lot of white chicks?
If you're an athlete, you bang you can go there and play golf. You're banging everybody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So Florida was a good experience. You went to a lot of games while you were there.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I went to Florida not necessarily knowing too much of the college culture.
Mm-hmm.
As an immigrant, your parents aren't like, you're going to go here and this is what you're going to experience. Your parents are just like, go save us, please, go. Okay.
Right.
So I went to college on my own dime, on my own, my own car, my own trip, which was really weird when I moved into the dorms by myself. I saw everyone else with families, like grandmas and grandfathers were helping, and like kids were helping, and I'm just sitting there by myself, like, is this how it's supposed to be?
Right. Setting up their microwaves and
doing everything. Meanwhile, I'm there by
fridge.
myself, and I'm like, Mom, Dad, you're supposed to be here. They're like, sorry, we're working.
Yeah.
Right.
So I didn't really know too much about any of that.
They're setting up other students' microwaves and mini fridges in the college. I'm on the third floor, Oscar. I can't help you.
I'm gonna cry on this podcast. No, but I'll never forget when I really was like consumed. It was the first game of the season, and everyone's going to this thing. And I wake up on a Saturday in Gainesville again, the first game after the national championship, and I'm like, this place is crazy. And my brother was at Central Florida, and I said, hey man, whatever you're doing, drop it and get to this place because it's insane.
Right.
So we scalped some tickets. We sat way up in the nosebleeds, and when the Gators ran out of that tunnel, that place shook.
That's
and I was
awesome.
like, oh, I love this place.
Yeah.
And ever since.
Yeah, and those years were like the Florida State rivalry was massive.
Yeah.
And what's the cocktail party of the South? That's a Florida game, right? Where
Yeah, that's against
who's that?
Georgia, and that's in Jacksonville.
So were those all pretty like wild experiences?
Yeah, well, from what I could remember. As an adult, I go back and it's a little different,
Right.
But it's just basically a lot of drinking and chasing tail.
Gotcha. So during your school experience, you end up interning with Conan O'Brien on the Conan O'Brien show. How'd
Yeah.
you land that, and what was that experience like?
Well, as John said, I'm a big sports fan. So my goal in college was I went in wanting to be a dentist, and then that very quickly went a different way. And then I was like, what?
I'm just chipping in with negative remarks.
I
I'm
don't-
like,
what-
it's a series of failures. I was going to be a baseball player, and then that didn't work, and then I wanted to be.
But isn't everybody's like that way?
But it is. It really is. Everybody has these like lofty goals.
I went in super high, and boy, did I come out low.
What do you do now, just for the people at home listening?
I wait tables and I tell jokes. Sweet. Yeah, so really high and woo.
See, I don't view
Step
that as
away
a
from
failure.
poverty.
You're just really fine tuning what you really,
That's it.
want to do with life.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you have to wait tables to tell jokes. That's kind of the.
Yeah,
that's
it's
kind
the
of
only
trade-off.
job that allows you to be flexible. Any other job is pretty tough. But So yeah, I went in, with I want to be a doctor, like everybody goes in, and then you realize after taking chemistry and calculus and maybe a couple of fraternity and sorority parties, you're like, I don't know if this is the way.
Yeah.
You still could have went therapist probably.
Yeah.
They don't got to know all those formulas and shit.
So as a public relations major, I was like, I want to work for the Miami Dolphins. So I sent out cover letters and resumes to every single East Coast team. So New York Giants, New York Jets, Ravens, Washington Redskins, Tampa Bay was one of them, Jacksonville was one of them, and no one responded.
Right.
No one responded. Out of the blue, while on those primitive websites, I was like, let me see who's on Conan O'Brien tonight, because I used to watch him religiously. And through clicking around, it said we take interns, and I was like, well, let me just throw this in there.
Right.
And then they happened to call me back, and I got it. And that kind of changed my life. So I love Conan and I hate Conan at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what'd you do on the show?
I was a musical intern. So it was back then. It was Max Weinberg and the Max Weinberg 7.
Right.
So I was Max Weinberg's intern. So whatever he needed
cool.
or the band needed, I was that guy. He lives not too far away.
Yeah, he's a Jersey.
Oh, is he really?
I heard he's a notoriously cheap prick. I hope you guys aren't getting him on the podcast.
Are you recording this?
Listen, I'm
I
on
plead
the
the
phone.
fifth on that one.
You're the one that told me. That's right.
I don't know.
Okay, so
I always,
I'm on
honestly,
my phone, and I know I'm only doing that because I'm trying to look up Three Families. So that's the reason for anybody watching live. I'm not being a rude prick. I mean, I am, but when
Gotcha.
it's very specific to what he's talking about when I'm being a rude prick. The other time, I'm actually trying to be helpful.
All right, so you're not like texting.
He's working.
You're
Maybe
working.
so.
They're working
Right,
right
yeah.
now.
Right, cool.
I'm working.
Yeah,
That's awesome. So, one of the things I was always most comfortable about those Conan years was actually when the camera was on Max. Like, do you remember like those goofy expressions of him playing drums?
Yeah. Did you notice back then that every joke was against Max? He was always a pedophile. He was always a rapist. He was always somebody. It was always very negative.
Right.
And that's because everyone hated him.
Oh, really?
All the writers hated him because he was maybe not the nicest guy.
Did he have like a diva attitude a little bit when he came in?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was just thought he was, Again, as an immigrant, I had no idea who he was. So when I came to Jersey and I was staying in East Brunswick with my cousin who married an American, he was like, so what do you do? I'm like, I don't know, this guy, Max Weinberg. I'm his intern. And he's like, who? What? Are you kidding? He went bananas. And I was like, who is this guy? He's like, oh, that's Springsteen's drummer.
Right.
And he was, completely captivated by that. But I was like, he's just some guy that tells me to get his smoothie. And when his smoothie's $6, he gives me $6 and the smoothie's $5.98. And then he's like, where's my change? So I would give him back his 2 pennies.
Nice.
Oh, really?
That's exactly what John was referring to.
Gotcha.
How long did he intern?
I was there for 6 months.
Long,
Yeah.
6 months?
Yeah. No, it was actually fun. It was
Okay.
actually a lot of fun because there's different departments. You could be a general intern, which you just sit in some lobby waiting for whatever somebody needs, which is usually a coffee or some type of meal.
Right.
Or you could be a department intern, which I was. So I sat inside the office right next to Max's assistant, which was right next to his office.
Right.
And, whatever they needed. It was still kind of the same, like, go get me sheet music, go do this, go do that. But anytime they had a musical guest, I was their host. So I'd go down there and introduce myself and whatever
cool.
they needed. I was their guy. So I got to meet a lot of celebrities.
That's
there. It was
cool.
kind of awesome. Yeah.
I went to see Conan in some of those early years, and it was Naughty by Nature was a musical guest
That's so
doing
funny.
OPP live.
Yeah, that's
it was
awesome,
sweet. That was a good one. So do you have any like memories of some of your favorite music guests they saw?
Yeah, so he had a lot of indie bands because he was the type of show that would put a lot of smaller bands on to kind of get them that national recognition.
Right.
But every once in a while, big names would come through. So Dolly Parton was somebody that I met, and she was so nice. It wasn't even like the nicest woman I've ever met.
Really?
Charlie Daniels was another guy that was super nice. Snoop Dogg, Linkin Park.
Nice.
The Snoop Dogg story is great. So all these all these people, they come by themselves or maybe with one other musician, and they show up in a Lincoln Town car.
Right.
So whenever we would get the call, they'd be like, Oscar, go downstairs, and I'd go down where it says, that famous Rainbow Room awning,
Right.
and I'm waiting there for a Lincoln Town car, and I'd say hello to whoever it was, and I'd bring them back up.
Right.
So then when I get the phone call like, oh, Snoop Dogg's around the corner, I go down, and this giant tour bus pulls up, and I'm thinking to myself, this tour bus better move out of the way because I'm waiting for Snoop Dogg in a Lincoln Town car.
Right.
And then out of this bus, the biggest white dude ever opens the door, and he's like, are you Oscar? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, come here. And without even thinking twice, without even being like, who is this guy? No, I'm not going to go to you. I was just like summoned over there.
Right.
And then he's like, he's got a question for you. And I walk in, and there's just Snoop Dogg and his entire entourage with a cloud of smoke. And he's like, can I
That's so
smoke
chill.
up there? And I was like, I'm not sure, Mr. Snoop Dogg, sir. Let me find out. So I had to make the phone call, and they were like, yeah, it's no problem.
Right.
So,
He could smoke weed in the studio.
well, technically he couldn't, but
Right. But they were like, wow.
they were like, yeah, sure, whatever.
That's so crazy.
Yes.
When you reach that level of fame, there's just no rules.
But it was just
Yeah,
there are no rules.
Yeah, go ahead.
And-
Very
but it,
quickly, Chappelle was at I was at the Comedy Cellar, and Chappelle came downstairs, and he was smoking on the stairs of the Comedy Cellar. Like, he just does whatever he wants.
Yeah,
When did they ban smoking in New
Yeah.
York City? Who's
Yeah.
going to say something?
yeah, but the funny part was that all these celebrities are pretty low key to themselves. But this guy brought he literally had like
Everybody.
70
His 15
people.
cousins.
Right.
With 4 PlayStations or Xboxes or whatever, and then of course, and it's so stereotypical, but I was sent out to go get like maybe 900 pieces of Popeye's chicken.
That's awesome.
That is
But they were super cool.
I'm
they were
so
all like
jealous,
really
dude.
nice. But
Meeting Snoop is like one
Me
of
and
the
him
things.
were in the
Did
elevator.
you smoke with him?
no,
No.
I can't.
I haven't done, I'm
'Cause
sober
that-
for 12 years, but if I met Snoop,
Yeah, I would've-
I'd have to start counting days again.
I would have just joined, jumped right in with that crew.
Yeah.
That totally
Yeah.
lives up to what you'd expect, though. You expect the doors to part and just smoke come rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the funniest part of the whole night was here's another thing about being that type of intern. All the other general interns were on the 9th floor. You couldn't come down to the studio.
Oh, okay.
I was in the studio the whole time.
That's cool.
So when Snoop Dogg got interviewed, I was actually inside where the cameras were, and I was watching this interview live. And Conan says, this was so funny. He goes, I've been doing this show for X amount of years, and I always get nervous. And then I come out here, and the nerves are there for a little bit. But today, your dressing room is next to my dressing room, and I'm really calm. He addressed it that way, and everybody was
That's pretty
cracking up
funny.
because he had the whole place just stinking of weed.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
So, do you get any interaction with Conan during this time as an intern? Does he come out once a semester and introduce himself to everybody? Or?
No, they're super busy. Number one, number two, super nice guy. The guy you see on television is the guy that is behind the scenes.
Right.
He's exactly who he is. I did request a picture with him, and he said yeah, and he said thank you for what you do and whatever. But fast forward. So that got me into comedy, right?
Okay.
And so fast forward, now I'm here in New York City. I work at a restaurant called Nobu. Super popular place, and Conan has a reservation there.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh man, I gotta be this guy's waiter. I have to be his waiter. Right. So I told my manager why I needed to be his waiter, and I was able to switch it. And so after his meal, it was him and his wife, and after his meal, I told him, I said, hey, it's because of you that I'm here, because I was an intern on your show. And the dude was so appreciative and be happy, and then we talked for like an hour about my experience there.
No.
Wow.
He was just
That's
so
awesome.
awesome about it. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What was the tip?
Listen,
He didn't pull Weinberg on you, did he?
no, every celebrity that goes to Nobu tips ridiculous. It's the businessmen that you don't know.
Right.
Those are the guys.
Those are the 10%ers.
Those are the cheapskates and then people who are mean.
So
Everyone
is
else is super nice.
Is this recently? Or are you still at Nobu, or is this a while ago?
No, I got fired from Nobu.
Okay.
But this was a while ago. I worked for Nobu for about 8 years.
Right.
It was a good and bad experience. Good because I made a lot of money. I made a lot of friends, and I got to meet a lot of people. Bad because that type of job is your career waiter type of job.
Right.
So if you go in there as a creative and you're like, I could have told my boss, hey, I have this audition for Saturday Night Live.
Right.
He would have been like, sorry, you got to work.
Right.
If you don't show up, you lose
Yep.
your job. Type of
Yeah.
very rigid.
So you're not at a place like that now?
No, I work
Way
at a place
flexible?
where I could literally just piss on a table if they piss me off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's
cool.
awesome.
That's the place you need.
That's where I want food.
So yeah,
That's not the place you need. That's the place he needs to work.
The place is great and they're super nice, and
That's
I
cool.
couldn't be happier working anywhere else.
Awesome.
you ever see any of the Howard Stern crew at Nobu back in the day?
Oh, I used to wait on Howard Stern all the time. Him and his wife would come in a little earlier because they had the show. If his bill was $300, he'd leave $500.
Right.
Easy. Every
Stern.
single time. Stern.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He's got-
Super nice.
Yeah,
Nicest people ever.
that's cool.
You can make a pretty good living waiting in New York City, right?
Listen, this is, going later on in this podcast when we talk about other business ventures. I wish I could have done this earlier because at Nobu, my average yearly income was $90,000
Right.
Wow.
Well,
at Nobu.
Yeah.
And that's just working 5 days a week.
Right.
Again, I have very little time for comedy, and the
That's-
real reason why I
That's
came to
teacher.
New York.
That's teaching 15 years in.
Yeah.
In a lot of places.
Yeah.
You know.
And now that I think about it, I'm like, oh man, take home was 55 after taxes and everything.
Right.
You're paying $45,000.
It was ridiculous.
In taxes?
It was ridiculous. But
You need a new accountant. You're paying Canadian tax rates with no health
I
insurance.
mean, the more you make, the more they take,
Right.
So, but basically, it was like a good portion of it was gone in taxes.
Dude,
But
they smelled the
what-
immigrant on you. And
what-
just robbed you. That
Whatever
accountant
I
was
made.
just running your
Tax this
pockets,
guy.
dude.
Here's the thing: whatever I made, I remember looking at my bank account and being like, "Oh my God, I have nothing to show for it. I have nothing. I mean, I have a lot of stories that I have from it, and a lot of alcohol in my system because
Right.
of it, but nothing really to be like, oh,
were you living in New York while you were working there?
Yeah.
So the cost of living is,
Yeah.
90 sounds great, but really,
Right.
in New York, it's not.
Comparable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably 60 everywhere else.
Right.
Okay.
I was listening to a podcast today, and they said that if you make over $50,000, you're globally in the 1%.
Yeah.
Globally.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow. There's got to be a lot of poverty elsewhere because
yeah.
so many people make over 50.
Yeah.
And even if you make
and
50
yet
in New
these
York
broads
City,
still complain. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Okay, can we move into the reason why we are here?
Yeah. Let's do a quick comedy check, real quick,
Okay.
and then we'll kind of fast forward. You dive into comedy.
Yep.
You've drawn on your immigration, your background as an immigrant.
Right.
You still carry that forward, and you were telling us when you got here, you have a little, I don't know what you would call it, like a group of other comedians called Hilarious Colombian Americans.
yeah, so it's a group of 5 of us who are all Colombian, either born or, of background. Actually, out of the 5, 4 of us were born there. 1 guy was born here. But we all have, kind of the similar immigrant story. So I put this group together, and and we're hopefully this year taking off with it.
That's
I don't
cool.
know what taking off means in this business. At this day and age, it means nothing. But
Yeah.
you got a couple of shows you're taking off.
Yeah, yeah. And you're going to do it in Miami, right?
We're booked July 24th in Miami. It's a Wednesday. It's the week after the Independence Day parade. Colombia's Independence Day weekend is the 19th and the 20th. So there's always a big celebration, big festivities. So the Wednesday after, we're flying down there. And we got a couple of shows up here in New York and New Jersey before.
Who's all doing that? You, Carambambo?
Me, Alex Carabaño, Carlos Gonzalez, Pedro Gonzalez, and Santi Espinoza. They're all
Sweet.
Colombian dudes, yeah.
That's
Nice.
cool. And around New York, you play basically everywhere.
Yeah.
Been at the Apollo.
Yep. What the funny thing, when John did the Apollo, I remember being like, if John could do it, I could do it.
I served Conan O'Brien, for Pete's sakes.
And then I tanked at the Apollo.
Oh, I wish I would have been there.
No, I went
to
first. It
breathe
was
it
a
in.
rough start, but
Yeah.
I eventually got them to go.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
I've seen some tanks there, though.
Yeah. I felt like that night I was like,
It's weird. It's a weird
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, there's a lot of like anticipation leading up to it for yourself. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, all
All
right.
right. So you also do some commercial work and film work, things like that. I saw you in a Dunkin' ad, actually. Did John get free coffee today because of you?
I got paid like I got paid like $100
What
for
were you,
that.
the
but
That's it. Right?
I was the guy picking the beans in Colombia.
With the mule.
Yeah, I've been in a couple commercials here and there, and I kind of I kind of stopped doing that just because
It's a lot of
it's so frustrating,
and there's not a lot of yield, right? I mean, like you
No.
go to 15 of them, and then
Yeah.
you get a Dunkin' commercial, and it pays $100.
Not only that, the rejection. It's constant rejection. It's
Yeah.
rejection. It's rejection. It's rejection. This business is all rejection. And after a while, you're like, I don't want to take this rejection anymore.
Right.
I'm ready to get back into it, but there's a process. You got to get new headshots. You got to do this. You gotta
Oscar
do that.
actually came to one of my auditions and sat with Mary in the hallway
Oh, really?
while I ran in.
Yeah, I babysat for John.
yeah,
Yeah.
It was big.
Cool. Very cool.
And another guy came, and then we took a picture, and we labeled it 3 Men and a Baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy I initially asked, I didn't trust him to come, and Oscar's reliable. So
But the guy eventually came, so it was 3 of us there.
That's cool. So how did you guys meet? Was it doing shows together, same
That's a good
venues?
question.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that. I
What
know
is it
we
like-
met through our buddy Chris.
Oh yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I just don't know when or how.
Chris is one of my best baps.
Yeah, and he's one of my best friends too.
I
so-
feel like Chris has like a lot of best friends, but because he's just so goddamn amenable.
Yeah.
And, but he probably like considers none of us like his best friend.
Yeah. I think we did a show together, and
Yeah.
and I was like, man, that kid's hilarious.
Right.
It's probably been like 8 years now or something, right?
Yeah, I think maybe even more.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Listen, we both thought we were gonna make it by now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, here we are looking for other outlets.
That's
It's
a good segue right
Here
there.
is the reality.
That's right. So,
All right.
exactly. One of the reasons we're here is, as you mentioned earlier, you had those years of high earning income, but you were socking money
Fucking
away
it away.
paying rent, right?
Actually, I had very low rent at the time.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did, which is another reason why I'm so angry at myself for just not really having. I wasn't grown. I wasn't mature.
Listen, I can't speak for everybody at the table, but I know with me, there's been moments in my life where I've made a lot of money, and I'm thinking, okay, this is the new standard. It's only going to go up from here.
Right.
So I might as well start spending it.
So increase my expenses.
Yeah. And then like a year later, you're like, I really should have squirreled some of that away. You know?
Yeah.
That's cool. So one thing John's been working on is
Getting
when he
his
came
life
out
together.
to Jersey,
Trying.
he immersed himself in the real estate market out here. So how did he approach you with what he's doing real estate wise?
He was like, "Hey, look, man, I'm doing this, and whatever you're paying, you can pay that and own your own home. And if Dave Lester can do it, you can definitely do it." That's pretty much how he said it.
Yeah, I gave him the short pitch. But hold on, Oscar's a pretty responsible guy. As far as comics go, like he's always, you heard him. He's like, I'm, working hard, making money. Doesn't really leave a lot of room to do the other thing, right?
Yeah, I work or do comedy. I sleep a lot. That's another thing that I do. But besides those 3 things, I do nothing else.
Well, I can tell he's responsible because he showed up. He's in the studio, and you're outside looking for him. Where are you, man? I'm here.
But also, so like right now, Oscar is, when I was talking to him about this just a few days ago, I'm giving him the 3-family pitch, right? 2 apartments pay your mortgage. And he goes, well, I'm kind of living rent free because he's running an Airbnb situation, right? Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. How's
Well,
that?
I have a 2-bedroom.
Okay.
In Harlem, which is A, rent controlled, B, very affordable. Those 2 kind of go together, and C, huge. It's a big place for New York City, and it's the type of place that I'm like, I'm not gonna leave it. Like I'm just not gonna leave it until something happens. I was living with an ex-girlfriend, and then she took off to go on a trip, and I had another guy coming in to rent out the room, the 2nd bedroom. But then he fell through, and then somebody else was like, "Oh, I'm interested in the room," and he's like, "I'll take it." And then he fell through, and then my back was against the wall, and I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna do." So I was like, "Let me just."
And
try
at that
it.
point, those rents were covering what, half of your
Yeah, half.
rent? Okay.
Yeah, half. And at that point, I was like, I'm not quite, I was like, let me try this Airbnb scenario. I'm just gonna give it a shot for the month or 2 that.
Was Dino already doing it at the time?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No,
So
I
you-
don't
so
think
you were first.
I believe I was first.
Okay.
Yeah. So I put it on that market, and I got a couple people in there, and it all happened fairly quickly. And I was very surprised how how people just rent a room and then they come in and you get money and they're barely even there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's New York. They're not there.
They're
sort
not
of
there
like,
hanging out with you.
Sort of like a hotel at the beach. You're not there for the accommodations.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Need a place
So
to
Right.
put your stuff.
so the room was kind of Lance Sweets, one of our good friends, was
Yeah,
living
you're a good
there.
friend. I think he's all right. Anyway.
All right. So, well, I say good friend. I lived with the guy for 3 years
Yeah,
before
yeah,
he
yeah.
moved out, and then my girlfriend moved in.
Gotcha.
But so when he left the room, it was the room had been painted. It had old carpet, and so I did the Airbnb under those conditions for like a month. I'm not quite sure if the people liked it or not, but I took that money and I paid somebody to renovate the room.
Right.
Smart.
Yeah.
And
You see what I mean? He's a together guy.
Right.
Yeah.
and it's been maybe 2 or 3 years of Airbnb.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
I did have to. I had a little hiatus because I had a little roach issue, but I took care of that, and
So
it's as long as no one comes knocking on the door saying, "Hey, what you're doing is illegal.
Right.
We're going to serve you some papers."
well, that's it, right?
Now, is it technically?
I was thinking about that lately.
What's your lease say, man?
My lease says that I can sublet.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's some gray area.
But there is a gray area. So there's 3 things that I'm kind of concerned with. The exact legal jargon on my lease agreement.
Okay.
What New York City says you can or can't do, which I have been told. I haven't looked into it, but I've been told that you could, if you're there, you can do it. But if you're not there, you can't do it.
So you have to occupy the.
You have
the
to be
space.
there,
Okay.
yeah, which I am there. So
Okay.
if that is true, then I'm not doing anything wrong by New York City standards.
Okay.
However, there's some type of little hook there that if you live in a rent stabilized apartment,
Yeah.
then so I got a buddy of mine who's a lawyer, and I'm gonna just send him everything
Yeah.
and be like, tell me whatever I'm doing.
Realistically, like you have one spot. It's not like you have like a 10 of them.
Yeah.
You're under the radar by I'm assuming any degree.
Yeah,
So-
I tell all my guests, that's the first thing that I tell them when they
Yeah.
book. I go, when you get here, you're my friend, you're my cousin, make up a lie, go with it, do your best
Are
lie.
people like, oh fuck, what is
No,
what's going on?
everybody knows.
Yeah.
Everybody understands because it's not only in New York City, but it's
everywhere.
It's everywhere
Yeah.
in major metropolitan areas that
and
Airbnb
it's
is
every,
illegal.
all their
It's the hotel
ordinances
business
are-
that's trying to control all this stuff
Okay.
because they're
Of course.
losing a lot of money.
Of course. Well, I mean, there is some credibility to some of what they say. I mean, there's a lot of fucking bullshit in there because they're trying to protect their bottom line. But, you're a woman traveling and you get some guy who's a creep, a creep at best. You got a camera, watching you pee. A creep at worst. Your safety, your safety's in jeopardy, right? So I think there does have to be some sort of legislation at some point, and and of course the tax dollars, blah 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 blah. That's not the point of this.
Yeah.
But so here's my thoughts on your situation with the Airbnb. Right, a lot of comics in New York City, when they get a rent control apartment, they're like, made it.
Right.
I'm good. I don't have to move ever again. Cool. You've got a reasonable living situation. Problem is, you're still paying somebody else's mortgage down. That thing is never going to become an asset to you. It is, you're at best, you're always going to be paying down rent. And maybe you can Airbnb indefinitely, but maybe not.
Yeah.
You're sort of living and dying by local legislation, right? Now, and this is exactly what we talked about. You're like, I'm kind of living rent free right now, and I'm like, that's great. But eventually, you can be living mortgage free and collecting income off those rents that you'd be collecting in a 3-family, and also having an asset for $500,000. You're ahead of the game as far as most comedians living in New York City, right? But we're behind the 8 ball when you think of people who've established a retirement. And what are you going to do when you're fucking 60? Wait tables? Do comedy? Probably not in both cases.
My
right?
brother asked me the same thing. He was like, "What are you?" He's in finance.
Right.
He's got
He's got his shit
he's
together.
got the advanced degree. He's got the career. He's got the wife. He's got the kids. He's got the house. He's got the backyard. He's got the title. And he's
Yeah.
like, "What are you gonna do?"
And you get
when
to
you're-
sleep in.
He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "What are you gonna do when you're 70?" And my answer was, and still sometimes is, just because it's so annoying to confront such a reality. I'm like, I'm gonna be the most hilarious Walmart greeter ever. However, they just did away with the greeters, so I saw that in the news, and
be
I
a
was like,
robot.
"Oh man, yeah."
Well, that's it. And grocery cashiers are getting eliminated too, right?
Yeah.
When they're making us check and bag our own groceries.
Yeah.
Whenever you see a grocery cashier, at like 90 or something, and you wonder, like, what did that poor person do? They're probably an artist. They were probably an artist.
Or
you
they're
know?
just trying not to be bored out
That's
of their
true, too.
mind.
That's
you
true,
know?
too.
Right.
So,
You know,
Where they're taking
90 cans of cat food's got to be a little pricey.
That's right.
a hip costs a lot of money.
All right, so
That's true.
this is kind of what we come up with. Initially, when I was talking to Dave and I was showing him numbers, I was like, you're paying $1,500 in Harlem. And, you know, for $900, you could be owning a single family in Newark and have $30,000 in equity, and you got 3 bedrooms instead of 1 for your infinite amount of children and a backyard space, and you know, eventually that
retirement
thing will
plan.
be free and clear.
Yeah.
Well, that was a single family, and then another guy showed to me. He's like, no, you get them in the 3 family. The 3 family, now they're not paying a mortgage at all, and eventually it's the retirement plan, right? So why don't you switch me seats, and Mike can run your credit and what you make and sort of do like a pre-qual real quick, see what you could possibly buy, and then start, and let's try and pull up a couple of properties and see if we can.
Cool.
This is very preliminary. I
should cut it, right?
Yep. So what we're going to do right now to do that is we're going to shut down. We've been broadcasting on Facebook Live. We're going to cut that out. We're going to give a quick shout out to Oscar for everyone watching one last time. Check out Oscar Collazos at Oscar Collazos. We'll do it the English way that time. OscarCollazos.com.
yeah, good luck finding the Y with the little accent goo on top.
Follow him everywhere at Colombian Comic. Coming up in July down at the Miami Improv with the hilarious Colombian Americans. Oscar, thanks for being in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having me. Yeah.
So we're gonna cut the feed, and then we're gonna keep going on and get into a little bit more of how the mortgage process works and qualifying and all that.
Social Security number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speak it into this microphone.